Good afternoon again, and good afternoon to everybody who is joining us online over Zoom. It is a truly beautiful day to be gathered here together, and it is good for us to be together in this way. And the family thought it was very fitting, particularly given Sally's love of stories and kind of creating community and bringing friends together, that this would be a really appropriate way to honor her story and her life. And so what we're going to do is I'll start off with a brief gathering prayer, and then we'll have a couple of stories that I will be reading on behalf of other people. And then there'll be a couple of individuals who I will invite up also to share their stories. Obviously, there are way more stories than we could ever possibly fit into the span of this gathering. And so certainly encourage you after the more formal time of sharing is done to continue to gather together, to be with each other, to share those memories and to honor the life of Sally. And certainly in that way, she continues to live on through each one of us. And so we gather together. Good and gracious God, we remember before you today our beloved Sally. We thank you for giving her to us to know and to love as a companion in our pilgrimage on earth. In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn. Give us faith to see that death does not have the final word, so that we may live in confidence and hope until we are gathered together in the company of all your saints. Amen. My name is Chris Schaefer. I am fortunate enough to serve as the pastor at Divinity Lutheran Church in Towson, where Sally and Les were longtime members. And so I am honored to sort of kick off this time of sharing. Unfortunately, obviously, I only got to know Sally for the last few years. I've only been serving at Divinity for about 3 years now. But one of my first and foundational memories involves Sally and Les. Really the first big event that I did with the community of Divinity was wrapping some Christmas presents for a local shelter for mothers who were escaping domestic abuse and their children. And this is an event that had been going on for some time with Divinity and continues to. And so it's truly an honor to be a part of that. But one of the things that I really loved about that was it was also an opportunity to get to know some of the members at Divinity. And Sally certainly was one to give an incredibly warm welcome. There was no judgment, no interviews, no way of sizing me up and down. It was just a beautiful and open welcome. And I had the opportunity to gather in fellowship after worship for many Sundays after, and that Sally was always one of the first to invite me to sit at the table with her and Les. Les was a really huge help to me as I was first starting off, especially as he said, "My name is Les. You can always remember that by less is more." And so it was a really helpful mnemonic device for me. And certainly it was a great way to be able to remember his name. And so just a beautiful time that I was able to kind of connect with them and to get to know them a little bit better. And certainly one that I will always cherish. The first story that I will be sharing is on behalf of Bob. If there's any words that you want to say before.
I just really appreciate it being here. This is what Mom was all about, being with friends. On that note, I'll let you do it because I can't read it without choking up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand up here with me, Doug.
Yeah.
Of course, this is my brother.
One job that you never retire from. It is so wonderful and comforting to see so many familiar faces again. Having all Mom's close friends here together is so appropriate. That was what Mom was all about. Being with friends and sharing stories is how Mom shared her love with all of you. Always has been. When I last saw many of you, it was back in January 2015 for her 80th birthday celebration. Mom's 80th birthday celebration was held in the Cross Creek Library in tribute to the many years she worked as the librarian at Genesee School. a job she retired from in June 1997 after 20 years of amazing memories and friendship. That celebration meant so much to her. Mom was always about enjoying the company of friends and family, and she loved sharing her stories. Even if she had already told the same story to you 1,000 times already, she always needed to tell it again. That was her way of sharing her love. That evening, we all had a great time, reconnecting and catching up with friends and former neighbors we haven't seen in years, sharing old memories, and more than anything else, laughing and having a wonderful time with close friends. However, during this joyous birthday celebration, there was one thing that my wife and I kept secret from her. We waited 2 days and then broke the news no mother wants to hear. My heart valve was quickly failing and I would need open heart surgery within 2 months. Years earlier, Mom had lost her husband and her oldest son to heart failure, Dad at 65, and my brother on the morning of his 50th birthday. As expected, the news was an awful shock to her. Although she was 80 years old and I was 51, being a mom is one job a person never retires from. She wasted no time tapping into the one resource that moms spend a lifetime cultivating just for this purpose, her social network of friends that she had lovingly built over her lifetime. And that network of friends is everyone in this room today, and many others who could not join us in person. This wonderful group of people would play a critical role in getting her son into the care of the top heart surgeon in the area and ensure her boy would be in good medical hands. This is the motherly instinct. Even in her final days this past August, when her own health was quickly failing, her greatest concern was never about self, but about her 2 boys. Once a mom, always a mom. The instinct to care for her children never ended. It's a mom's lifetime job. Of course, love goes both ways. On June 29th, my brother Doug and I got the call Mom was in the ER. She would be released the following week, but from that point on, her health would quickly deteriorate. My brother moved into the den of her apartment and would care for her every need, night and day, for the next 6 weeks. Feeding her, keeping her hydrated, helping with her medical appointments. And when not doing that, holding her hand and comforting her. I know my brother Doug cherishes those 6 weeks with her as his most precious moments in his life. I couldn't be more proud of my brother. And I know I speak for Mom when I say Doug's care and attention to her during those 6 weeks meant more to her than words could ever describe. Mom, our love for you will always be there, and we know your love for us continues on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I can't say more than a couple of sentences, but in the last 6 weeks, my mom was so worried that she was a burden to me, and I just didn't tell her that I valued every moment I spent with her. As much as I tried to comfort her, she did even more to comfort me in those final days.
Hi, I'm Akiko. I'm Sally's daughter-in-law. Thank you very much for joining us today. When I was asked to describe Mom, the first few words that came up to my mind was warm, friendly, and loving. My memories of her are filled with her warm smile. You know, I came to this country alone in my 20s. My parents, my brother, my sister, they all live in Japan. But I never felt lonely because she warm-heartedly welcomed me to the Clayton family and treated me as if I was her real daughter. She used to say, I have sons, but I never have a daughter. So I'm glad to have you in my family. I felt welcomed. I was loved. So she was the best mother-in-law I could dream of. And of course, he was the best son to the sons. She had 3 sons. Unfortunately, Jack, her eldest son, passed away before her. But 2 of them are here today. Bob, her youngest, the second son is my husband, and Doug, the eldest. And they all grew up to be wonderful men because she was a good mother and she loved them dearly. So I'm grateful to be part of her family. And I thank her for loving all of us. I will cherish the wonderful memories I had with her for the rest of my life. Thank you.
It's kind of welcome the graves. The graves.
So I'm Ted Grafe. I'm Les's son and Sally's son-in-law. Just as she was adopted, her wonderful daughter-in-law, she also adopted her grandkids. Rita and I just kind of came along as the drivers, but she was pretty much all about the grandkids too. But James and Celia are here today. Our daughter Anna is out in Colorado and wishes she could be here as well. But Sally was a wonderful grandmother. My mom passed away in her 70s in '96, and it was wonderful how the 2 couples, Les and Betty and Sally and Phil, knew each other since they showed up in Baltimore. And I guess, I don't know if Phil and Les knew each other at MIT or not, or whether they just happened to both be alums here in Baltimore, but they worked together at the planning department from the time they showed up here in Baltimore. So it was wonderful that, Sally and Les made, I guess, lemonade out of lemons, that they both lost their mates and got together. Sally did, or Les, when they got together, said, is it okay that we're together? And I said, are you kidding? Of course, this is wonderful. And I know that neither one of them would have been around as long as they did if they hadn't found each other and had a wonderful life together. My favorite line from Sally is that, when my brother Tom and I were kids, she would babysit us. So her line, and I'm sure some of you have heard it, is that Les married the babysitter. Now, you probably all knew my father, but you probably didn't know how organized he was necessarily. This is the announcement from the 80th birthday party that he had in his files that we've been going through. So it has all of the notes from the party. And then these are his notes from the celebration about Sally. So Sally, she's a 5-star lady. These are the things that you may not know about her. She's into chocolate and mandarin oranges. She's been to more lunches than anyone in this room. Though she's an only child, she also has more sisters than a big family would have, which is obvious as well. And she's a superb storyteller, which I think kind of wraps up Sally. So, anyway, she was a great mom and grandmom.
I'm Celia. I'm also the favorite grandchild. Because I know this because all of their passwords had my name in it. But each week of the summer, growing up, we would each get to spend a week with Grandpop and Grandma Sally, doing all kinds of stuff that was focused all around us, which was great. And at the end of the week, we would make photo albums to remember it, and that's what 3 of them are on the table here. But one of my favorite parts of the weeks I would always get to go on little dates with Grandma Sally, and it changed throughout the years, but sometimes it was to the Columbia Mall to get corn dogs. And then I graduated into the American Girl doll store. And then my favorite was definitely when we got to go to tea in Ellicott City.
Another thing that changed during those weeks was where they were. They were in Towson at first, and then they moved to Columbia and to the beach and back to Charleston. And throughout all of those moves, there were very consistent things when you got there. There was a very specific scent. They also had very interesting art. And whenever you walked in, Grandma Sally would ask if you wanted peach tea, and Grandpa would ask if you wanted vanilla ice cream.
So finally, there is some red glass on the tables, which we hope everybody will take home. Les collected red glass. Sally tolerated the red glass. That's the kind of person Sally was. Sally liked blue glass. So there was a little bit of blue glass in the apartment and a lot of red. But please take some flowers home with you. So thanks.
Thank you. Welcome up the Johnsons.
It'll just be me.
Okay.
Hopefully I can make.
Absolutely. I first met Sally through her son Doug, who I met after we both transferred to Bryant Woods Elementary School in Columbia. We became fast friends, as did our mothers, Sally and Janice. We spent a lot of time after school as well as on weekends hanging out at each other's houses. I spent so much time at the Claytons, I kind of felt like a fourth son. Sally was always welcoming and often expressed how great it was that Doug and I had become friends and stayed friends throughout the years, as did our mothers. One memory that sticks out to me was when Doug and I were in high school and we were hanging out at his house after school. I had a job working at a local pizza place, and Doug had assured me that Sally could give me a ride home that evening to get to work. However, a fast-moving blizzard came through and the snow started really piling up. It was getting close to time for me to go to work, and I had asked Sally for a ride home. Seeing the storm, Sally, being the accommodating mother she was, said, no. I should just stay here. Me, being worried about not showing up to work and getting fired, as well as being stubborn, decided I should walk home 3 miles in deep snow. Probably a half hour or so after I left the Claytons, Sally notices I'm not around and asks Doug where I had gone to. He told her that since she wouldn't give me a ride, I had decided to walk home. And she felt so awful. I made it home fine, a little frozen, but fine. She felt so bad that she would often tell this story even 30 years later. Sally was one of those special people we really think is never going to pass away and somehow just keep going forever. I'm going to miss her smile, her distinctive laugh, and that special glint in her eye that said she truly was excited to see you again. Absolutely. I'd like to welcome up Judith. I can move. It's fine.
You can see it takes two of them to get one of me around here. Good afternoon. For those of you who do not know me, I was a geometry tutor. When I first came to geometry in the 70s, I had the pleasure of tutoring next to Sally in a small cubicle in one of the mobile classrooms. She was a creative and dedicated tutor. When she took over the library, the lucky children whom she tutored could not wait to come in from recess to learn to read in a dry bathtub in the heart of the library and discover that reading could be fun. Many years later, when I found that Sally was lame without her, and I decided to retire as well. Our friendship continued throughout our retirement, and Garth, my husband, and I were thrilled when Les and Sally moved in to join us on the opposite end of the 5th floor here at Georgetown. We could see each other's misery knowing a close friend was nearby. Sally experienced more than her share of life's tribulations, but the words that come to mind when I think of her are resilience, positivity, and joy. She has been such a solid presence in my life over these many years and is dearly missed. I would like to end with this poem about friendship, which says it all. It's written by somebody called Gillian Jones, of whom I never heard, but she expresses my feelings exactly. A friend is a person who will listen and not condemn, someone on whom you can depend. They will not flee when bad times are here. Instead, they will be there to lend an ear. They will think of ways to make you smile so you can be happy for a while. When times are good and happy thereafter, they will be there to share the laughter. Do not forget your friends at all, for they pick you up when you can fall. And we are all here today to celebrate the life of somebody who was most unusually gifted and loving and kind, etc. Do not expect to just take and hold. Give friendships back. Give friendship back. It is pure gold. Now my family will hopefully get me back to where I started from.
Sue? Speak over here.
Yeah, I just might as well stay.
Okay.
I can put my phone there. For those of you who I worked with, this feels an awful lot like a 2-minute graduation speech. And Sally was probably the only faculty member that kept her speeches to 2 minutes when we honored our graduates. So anyway, I speak on behalf of the people I worked with and worked with her for all those years. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, like 50 years, Sally arrived at Genesee on day one with her son, Bobby, which is what we called him then. She loved to tell the story about how she was a volunteer. And the next thing she knew, she was hired. And so she was one of the combos. She and her husband, Phil, enjoyed all the parent faculty parties we had back in the old days. She was the social butterfly of the two of them, and he was always good for quiet, interesting conversation. Eventually, she shared all three of her sons with us. Bob and Doug as students, and Chuck or John was on staff with us. Sally was known among the faculty for her happy face and unique giggle laugh. Her sense of humor and her willingness to do almost anything to help out Over the years, she enjoyed doing different jobs at school, in her words, to keep things interesting. She tutored, did double language, written language. She absolutely loved encouraging young writers. She was a homeroom teacher, a canto. She was even in charge of organizing test, and I use the word rope and Genesee definition, into the organizing group for our famous festival days. Not to mention joining the ever popular backstage crew during plays. Somebody had to keep an eye on Jason, which I think you're going to hear from later. Eventually, she decided to move to her true love, which was books, and became our librarian and made it into the kind of library that our kids needed. Story time. She even made bags with stuffed animals and a book and a tape that various teachers read that the kids could take the kids could take home and then listen to. There were library classes, book suggestions for summer reading, research help, and try as she might to get the overdue books back in. Most importantly, though, the library became one of our many sanctuaries for our students, and you could always find students in there at recess that were Sally's kids. As a librarian, she was a creative force behind our famous Genesee Wax Museum, where older students became statues of people from biography, books from the library, of course, and the younger students walked around putting pennies in jars to activate the statues. I close with the best memory and the best quote ever. At first, we had Bill the Billionaire mystery parties. And our first mystery party, Sally pulled off the best surprise ending ever, as the librarian was the murderer. No one suspected. She loved it, and I'm sure it's a story that was told again and again. And as for the best line ever, there we were, a small group of teachers at 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting around a campfire on guard duty in the middle of our athletic field because somebody decided that an all-school campout would be a wonderful idea to end our festival day. It wasn't, I came up with some crazy ideas, but not that one. As we sat there quietly talking, trying to keep ourselves awake, Sally perks up. Some of you know exactly what's going to happen. Looks around and says, I have some peach schnapps in the library. True story. And of course, we drank peach schnapps. I was there. I sure was there.
For our last official story to be shared as part of our structured sharing time, we will hear from one of Sally's students, Jason, who was not able to be with us in person today, but has joined us online. And I am honored to share the story on your behalf, Jason. Dear family and friends of the beloved Sally Clayton, my name is Jason Berman, and I was one of Sally's students during her time at the Genesee School. I am sorry for such a loss for all of us, and I send my love to family, Bob and Akiko Clayton and Douglas Clayton. Sally was a teacher of mine starting in 1988 and through 1998. Sally was also a friend and champion of mine post my time at the Genesee School. I am sorry I could not be in person today, but am joining via Zoom. I take great comfort in knowing that Sally had so much love, joy, and happiness in her life, and that we all get to be together, celebrating Sally's incredible life today. I wanted to share a couple of memories of my special time with Sally over the years, as she, as my teacher, has had one of the biggest impacts on my life. I am the president of Mandalay Pictures in Los Angeles, in large part because Sally allowed me the opportunity as my teacher to support the start of my passion for film and video at such a young age, which set the beginning path for my career. Growing up, a lot of things didn't come easily to me. By kindergarten, I was diagnosed with dyslexia, OCD, and ADHD, a triple threat, as I like to call it, and not exactly the formula for an easy path. Yet, despite all the challenges I faced, that confluence of factors is actually what led me behind the camera in the first place. And once I realized how much easier it was for me to express myself through a viewfinder and a lens, I was hooked. Sally saw the potential for me with my passion for video, and with her support and encouragement as the Genesee School librarian, Sally and I started the first Genesee Video Club. The logo we created was the Genesee Moose with a video camera up to his right eye. The only problem was that we actually had no real video equipment. Sally was familiar with everything we would need because her incredible sons would make animation videos at home, which she used to tell me about all the time. Sally and I would create the list for what needed to start the video club: cameras, microphones, VCRs, editing stations, and television sets. Undaunted, and with Sally's support, we wrote a letter to the CEO of Sony Electronics Corporation of America and sent them a tape we had made of Genesee's production of Fiddler on the Roof, along with a heartfelt plea of why dyslexic students would benefit from a video program. And in return, Sony wrote back to us a few months later and offered us a 50% discount on all the necessary equipment. Sally used some of her librarian book budget to help pay for the equipment, and we raised the rest of the money from family and friends of Genesee, including some prolific Baltimore-based filmmakers. The video club started in Sally's office at the back of the Genesee Library, and we built these big wooden cabinets with Dean Craven and housed the equipment in them. Sally would stay late to let us film sporting events and shows, edit the videos, do news broadcasts, you name it. I think it started with about 8 students, and it just grew and grew, and Sally was the faculty member in charge of it all. She allowed us to pursue our passion in showing the world what we saw. I will never be able to thank Sally enough for letting this dream of ours become a reality. It gave me the fire in my stomach, confidence, and the passion that I needed to be successful as a dyslexic who struggled to read and write, and ultimately go on to Friends School and then to the USC School of Cinematic Arts in Los Angeles. Sally and I always kept in touch over the years through email, phone, text message, and Facebook. It was so great for both of us to keep each other posted on our lives, movies, and photos of the delicious meals her and Les would experience. Sally would always attend every Maryland screening of a film I produced, and she also came to see me give the graduation commencement speech at Friends School in June of 2017, in which I referenced Sally by name as the teacher who gave me the start in pursuing my passion. Sally meant the world to me. She was warm, joyous, so much fun to talk to, and had a smile that could brighten the entire campus of the school. Sally was always so nice to me, my sister, my parents and grandparents, and we loved her just like she loved us. I will miss you, Sally. You have left an indelible mark on my life, just like you have with so many others. You have also inspired me to teach others and to always give back, with so many loved ones by your side. You are the greatest, and I love you. Sincerely, Jason Michael Furman. So even just through this time, I think it was no coincidence. We can see that Sally ended up becoming a librarian at Genesee. She had a fondness for stories and cultivating that in each other, and creating space for that to happen. Sending a blessing here. Certainly encourage you to go on from this place, whether to share your stories, because they have, Sally was very keenly aware of that. As we kind of go back to her time of honor, Sally, she was a big fan of ABBA. And so in talking with Bob, we figured maybe the full disco version of Dancing Queen might not be the most appropriate for such an occasion. We have found a bit more of an acoustic coffeehouse version of it, but certainly in addition to sharing stories and creating space for others to share theirs, encourage you just to get your hands on some ABBA as much as you can, and continue to express and share that spirit of joy and happiness that I think Sally truly embodied. Is there anything else that you all wanted to share at this time before we go?
Can I ask you one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could ask the group, I think it would be really nice to get a photograph before everybody leaves of the Genesee teachers.
Ooh, yes,
So, and I
wonderful.
figure once people
Yep.
start talking, it'd be hard to gather everybody.
I totally appreciate that.
So
Okay.
I just thought it'd be nice to get a picture of all the Genesee teachers who taught with her.
Mhm.
So after.
Gather together. Wonderful. Into your hands, O God, we commend your servant Sally, of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, sinner of your own redeeming. Receive her into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and in the glorious company of the saints. Support us all the day long of this troubled life, until the shadows lengthen and evening comes and the busy world work is done. Then in your mercy grant us a safe lodging and a holy rest and peace at the last. Amen. Go forward from this place to love and serve each other, and to bring the light and joy. Thank you all for being here today. Joining us over Zoom. We have recorded this. If you would like to have access to that, feel free to reach out to Doug. They have my contact information. If there's anything else that you certainly thrilled to have you with us today. And at this point, we'll stop so you're not just kind of watching a bunch of people know about our room, but certainly encourage you to go on and honor. Thank you so much.